Hey, hello. My name is Jawanza Kobie. That's spelled Jawanza. The last name is Kobie, Kobie. First of all, I'd like to give honor and thanks to Gail for having me on this platform. It's an honor. It's a privilege for me to do this. It's not my comfort zone speaking to you, but it's still an honor, and I respectfully and I respect her and I appreciate it. Um, I know a friend of mine was telling me when you do these Zoom things, it's always good to start off with a joke. Well, I don't know any jokes, and I'm not a comedian. And some of the jokes I know might not be appropriate on this platform, but I did think of one joke. Let's try this one. Gorilla walks in the bar, and he orders a martini. Bartender looks at him, gives him a martini. Gorilla says how much it is. He says $30. Gorilla drinks the martini, walks out, comes back the next day, orders a martini again. The bartender makes the martini, asks how much it is. He's $30. So he makes him a martini, drinks the martini, then he leaves. Comes back a week later, and then he orders a martini again. And the bartender, feeling that he's more comfortable with the gorilla, says, "You know what? We don't get many gorillas in here." He said, "I guess not with those prices you charge." That's my joke for today. Hopefully that put some levity into this. I'd like to start this off by dedicating this to two incredible musicians that were friends of mine, and they one passed just this past Saturday, and one passed on September. The first one was Leonard Doc Gibbs, percussionist extraordinaire. Doc Gibbs played on so many recordings. He was in Emeril Lagasse's. Emeril Lagasse is a chef that was on Food Network. If you remember, he used to have a band, so that was Doc Gibbs' band. But Doc played percussion for many of people Al Jarreau, Bob James, Grover Washington, and he was the percussionist on both of my CDs. And he was a good friend, and also from my neighborhood too. Is from West Philly. I'm originally from West Philly. I live in North Delaware right now. And he passed in September, and we are mourning the loss of this great talent. And over the weekend, we just lost unexpectedly a friend of mine, Mike Tarsia. If you're from this area, you might not necessarily have to be from this area, but if you heard the name Tarsia, you know that's associated with the famed Sigma Sound Studios that were here in Philadelphia and in New York. Mike is the son of the founder of Sigma Sound Studios, which was Joe Tarsia. Mike died unexpectedly. I mean, really unexpectedly. People were talking to him the night before, no indication. I was talking to him earlier the week, no indication. And he passed away unexpectedly. And we are at a loss and for the passings of these two great individuals. And I just want to give homage to them and pay homage to Doc Gibbs and Mike Tarsia. One of the things I've asked, let me bear with this. So we're starting this little format and give you some background on myself. One of the questions is, how did I get into jazz? Well, I guess jazz was a byproduct of being around my father and my brother. My brother had an eclectic taste in music. I mean, he listened to everything. And my father brought home jazz records. So I guess you could say that was my foray, my entry into jazz, listening to jazz, even though I didn't know what it was. Because if you listen to me, if you hear me up until a certain time, only thing I listened to was R&B, and I was in love with the tune Duke of Earl. I was about 5 or 6 or 7 when that came out. And that was my favorite tune. Gene Chandler's Duke of Earl. I was into that stuff. Then I went off to the Four Tops. The Four Tops was the greatest group in the world to me. And so those are my things. But one of the things that stood out to me, the first jazz record that I really recall that struck me was a record that my father brought home, and it was Oscar Peterson's Night Train. I think it came out in 1962. And I was still in the single digits, about 6 or 7 years old. And I would wear that record out. One particular tune was called Hymn to Freedom. I loved the whole album. The whole album was melodic and it's playing. I didn't understand it, but it just felt good. but it was one tune he did, "Hymn to Freedom," which I found out was also a homage to the civil rights movement that Oscar Peterson had composed and put on his CD, or this album at that time. The CDs weren't there. But that was the first foray into my knowledge and knowing that I really appreciated jazz music, although I didn't know what it was. Then my foray went into Ramsey Lewis, because Ramsey Lewis had two major hits. He had "Hang On Snoopy" and "The In Crowd." And I used to love those two tunes, especially "The In Crowd." And because my brother brought it home, and he was older. He was about 6 or 7 years older than I was. So him being a big brother, I want to emulate everything he did. But I naturally did gravitate to that music. So Ramsey Lewis was the one that brought me into piano playing, and I love that music. And Ramsey Lewis was my idol for years too. Then you got on to Wes Montgomery. So you can see a pattern into, I guess you could say, music that was accessible to my undeveloped ears at that time. Not, I shouldn't say undeveloped, not as developed as they would be later on. Because I love Wes Montgomery's "Wendy" when he came out with that "Bumping on Sunset." And at that time, around 14, I started playing with a guitarist who idolized Wes Montgomery. He was in my neighborhood. His name was Brian Hartley. He's passed since. And he introduced me to Wes Montgomery. He had the same Gretsch guitar and everything like that. And we used to play together, and we would play "Bumping on Sunset" and "Wendy" and things that Wes Montgomery did, because he was my same age as my brother was. But so we would play that. So that was my foray to getting the first entry and getting to jazz. My next one was, who was the first jazz musician? Well, I just went over that. And they asked me, what's the first jazz album I actually bought with my money? Yeah, with my money, it didn't happen until the 70s. I had jazz records in my arsenal that my father had left. My father passed early when I was about 10 years old, but we had his jazz records. And plus a friend of his, Mr. Henry, he and my father used to exchange jazz records back and forth. So I had those jazz records, had my brother's jazz records, because my brother also went on to Bobby Timmons. Oh man, now Bobby Timmons is still an idol of mine. Bobby Timmons, the pianist, was from South Philly. Man, that Shung King album. Oh man, I was in love with that as a kid, man. So I had my brother's album, I had my father's album. So I didn't buy any jazz albums. Now the first album I actually bought was the Jimi Hendrix, the "Are You Experienced?" And I used to buy other albums other than that, but it wasn't jazz. But the very first jazz album I actually put money to was Chick Corea's "The Leprechaun." I had other Chick Corea albums prior to that. "Now He Sings, Now He Sobs," Miles Davis, "Bitches Brew." Like I said, my brother's stuff, so I knew that. But the actual one I've actually put money out to was Chick Corea's "The Leprechaun." And I was in love with the tune "Lenore." And that was my first foray into spending my money. Then as I went on and my repertoire grew, so I started buying quite a few more albums. And I would go to thrift shops here. And I know a lot of thrift shops in Boston where I went to school. And I would get records out of it. I remember the next one was Lee Morgan's "Sidewinder," and just a whole host of other things. I was still buying rock and other people's music, but that was my foray into actually, spending money on my own, buying jazz music. Like I said, I like to borrow jazz music. They said one of my things they're asking me, what are my current projects? I'm always doing something and I'm always working, but I like to, I've always had an affinity or appreciation for new music. This is what I've always wanted to be. I mean, when I was young, I'm looking at, I started trying to notate music when I was 9 years old. You can't play it. I mean, I tried to notate, but I started doing that then. It's nonsensical. You can't make heads or tails out of it. You can't go any place with it. But I've always wanted to be a composer. Beethoven was always my favorite from when I was younger, from 7 years old on, until I found other people like Aaron Copland, George Gershwin, Charles Ives, William Grant Still, so many other people. So I always fancied myself being like another Beethoven. And one of the things I used to like about Beethoven and one of the stories, because at the time, they didn't have tape recordings or records or something they could write down pieces of music. And I like the fact that, you could notate, he used to notate his, motifs of things until he got home and he could develop them. You just write them down under a tree or something like that. And I wanted to be that proficient. And now you could just write without having to hum into an answering machine or something like that. So I was actually following, in my head, I was following the steps of Beethoven in my head, at least along that path of notating music and being able to be proficient enough to actually write notes. Now, over the years, my notation skills have diminished because of, I was setting notation software. We didn't have notation software before, like Finale, Sibelius, and it was another one I used to use. Or Mosaic was in Digital Performer. I used to love that. Now, as far as I say diminishing, because I said it's actually, some of the things you don't have to do because they're automated within this particular software. And I don't use those particular skills that I learned years ago when I was in college that I still continue to use. It doesn't mean I diminished my writing. It just means my diminishing of notating might have diminished to a certain point, which it's just because of this lack of, practicing and doing certain things. But I'm really into writing, and I am always writing, whether for someone or basically for myself, just to keep things going. I'm writing. I don't know. I would like to say I write something a day, but I write something once a day, but it's not always. I don't have that much time that I can actually write once a day or a specific time, something like that. But when the mood hits me, I write. And it could be anything from jazz, classical, whatever it is, I just write. So my next projects right now, I do have certain things that I'm not going to speak about. I don't like speaking about things until they've happened. And something, because I have a newsletter list, I'll give you an example. I have a newsletter list, subscribers, and I was about to put something in there prematurely to my newsletter subscribers, to make it interesting. And I'm glad I didn't, because it didn't come about. So I've learned over the years to just speak about things that you have actual concrete evidence, or you signed contracts or some things like that. So right now, the main thing I'm doing right now, I'm just writing. And I'm doing my ROIs, with my return on investment for my efforts and things I've done this year. I like to assess the things that I've done this year with regards to composing, releasing a CD, marketing, because I'm a big fan of marketing. I'll get into that a little later on in a few. But I'm a big fan of marketing. I love marketing. I mean, I never knew I had a passion for marketing. Not necessarily good at marketing, but I like it. And I'm learning. I'm a student of marketing. So these are things I'm looking into, because just say 2 years, I'm so much into marketing. I'm a voracious reader. I'm taking courses. I even work with students on a college level in the University of Delaware in 2019, the fall semester. You're a small business and you can go into these classrooms and you work with students who want to work in their industry. So I had some students, small amount of students that want to be in the music industry. So I worked with them during a whole course of 2019 from September till December. You work with the students, and they exchange, and at the end they exchange a marketing plan or a marketing program or plan that they think that would benefit you based on the input and information you did, that you work with them. But I really like marketing, and I'm going to speak about that at a little length in a few. Just bear with me on marketing. Well, that's basically marketing. So one thing I learned about marketing, and this ties into quite a few things I'm going to get into. What I like about marketing, when we do projects, and I've noticed this when projects, I do a project, and I know, being an independent artist, like so many of us are, we put out these projects with the intent that if we build it, they will come. I use that type of terminology from it was a Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. You create a product, and some magic way, organically, people are just going to come to you and listen to your stuff. It's not going to happen. I mean, I'm sure you all know this. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But one of the first things I do, and I drive people nuts, even before I compose my first tune, I may start talking. I call marketers. I'm saying, well, how can I market this thing? And they'll say, well, what type of tunes did you create? I say, I ain't worked on that yet. I just want to talk about marketing. So it gives you an idea. It gives me a frame of mind that's where my mind is, because what it does, being an independent artist, I don't have much. We don't have much money to do so things, but it's a honor for me that I want to give honor to all the musicians and all the personnel that played on me and went with me on this journey to come about to make this music on the CDs. That I should honor them by doing the best I can by bringing attention back to their talent. If I can't do anything else, I can't pay you $1 million, but let me do what I can do marketing wise to bring things back to you, to bring things back to your talent, because people need to hear these musicians on our CDs and on our albums, and people need to be made aware of the talent that you brought, and it gives me honor, and I want to honor these musicians. So it's very important to me from a spiritual aspect that I do marketing to honor these musicians that came along with me in the journey in the first place. I've done like one of the things I'm doing. One of the questions is, how'd you make out during the pandemic? Well, this goes into marketing. I scored a film, and right now it's gaining awards. It's called the 9 o'clock Whistle. It's about a civil rights situation in the South that I would say recently. Well, you're my age. 50 years is recent, but it was up until recently, back into the late 60s. It was a whistle at 9 o'clock. It was Edinburgh, I think it was Edinburgh, North Carolina, and it was a town whistle at 9 o'clock that would go off on the weekends, and when it was a signal for all Black people to get off the street. You all better get your behinds, get your behinds and out off the street and away from here. So that's what the picture's about. It's about the segregation and the certain racist things that happened that people didn't know about. And so, like I said, fairly recently by, like giving somewhat apartheid type of situations in America. So it won #1 in LA. I think it was New Jersey. It's won #1 in documentary. I forgot what the other places. So I scored that film. And it was released in June of this year. I know they're going to Nigeria right now. I don't know the other awards, but this is what I do. I keep myself busy. I like to say by design, but it just happened to me because I scored another film for this filmmaker. And that won awards too. It's on PBS. And so I'm always busy because I'm always writing. If I don't have anything else, I can write. And I like to write. I mean, there's nothing more exciting to me than coming into listening to new music from new musicians, not necessarily new music, just new music. I mean, you'll find me in clubs, well, you would a lot of times, listening because I'm a sponge. I love listening to people, new music and new compositions, new players and stuff like that. You can go in each one of our cities, in our individual cities. Like I live here in North Wilmington, but I frequent Philadelphia so much because, like I said, I'm originally from West Philly. And you'll find me, I love listening to piano players. I mean, I'm in love, man. I get off on listening to people playing piano and stuff like that. I learn a lot from them. I know you would think my certain age, I would be a certain level, but I'm not, because my thing was writing, but I had to learn. But I learned that the more you develop in your instrument, the more it lends to your writing also. So this is why I like to learn more about the piano. But you'll find me supporting piano. I'm just a lover of the instrument of piano. And like I said, in our city, we have some great pianists. I'm sure you go to Chicago, you have your stars there. You have your stars here in Philly. I mean, in New York. Some of the people, like I said, in Philly that we have that you may not know of. You have like an Aaron Graves. People will always want to come in here and play and accompany singers. You have a Frank Strauss. He's not on Facebook. People don't know him. This boy is bad. Doesn't know. He used to be Tom Jones's keyboard player. You got the Orrin Evans. I mean, Orrin Evans. I'm a big fan of his. And I can go on to a lot of other people you may know, you may not know of. And I know, like, you go in New York, you have these other people. Oh, yeah, John Colonnade. He's down here in Philly now. But like I said, you have these artists and you have these people, but you'll find me searching for these people to play because I just love piano. And if something, and I'll go and ask these people, what did you do? What can I study that got you to this point? But so this is what I'm into. But I love new music. I love the new the established players like Christian Sands, Corey Henry. You got Cyrus Chestnut. Well, Cyrus Chestnut's been out for a while. And so, in fact, we have a connection. Cyrus Chestnut, Bruce Hornsby, and quite a few other people. We all had the same piano teacher at Berkeley, mind you, at different times. His name was Dean Earl. Dean Earl used to be a Sonny Stitt's keyboard player, a piano player back in the 50s, prior to coming to Berkeley. And I hit it off. Dean was he was my sponsor. I used to have a big band at Berkeley College of Music when I was there, and we had about 30 people. And it's phenomenal. Like, I had some of the people who are now established jazz musicians right now. Bobby Snobbery. I don't know if you know Bobby Snobbery out of New York. Awesome percussionist, multi-Grammy winner, Grammy nominee. He was a percussionist, not the drummer of my band. I was trying to get Kevin in the band. Oh, Kevin Eubanks. I'm sorry. I was trying to get Kevin Eubanks in the band just to do a solo, but I had so much work to do. I couldn't get. It was just overwhelming to include him at that point in time. I'm trying to think who else. When I know you had Bill Pierce, who was a first-year faculty member at the time. Bill Pierce became the department head of Berkeley. Art Blakely's music director for 10 years. Plays with, straight. Bill is. I was about to cuss. Bill is just a bad boy. And we had these people that were interested in some of the things I was doing. And it was all original music. I had Lawrence Burke come to my concert. Lawrence Burke, little story about Lawrence Burke. He was the founder of Berkeley. And when I was there, he was still the president. And I was so bold. You're young, you're too bold and you're too cocky to be scared. I would go up and knock on the door and start, and trying to get him interested in my concert. And he was interested. He actually came. He brought his wife. He brought Lee Burke, who the school was actually named for. Lee Burke brought his wife, and they came to they came to my big band concert. But I would go up there on every Thursday and just shooting with Lawrence Burke. And it got to the point where I noticed he started looking forward to me coming. He would have scores out on his desk and go over scores with me, show me scores he had written for the NBC Symphony Orchestra, which I didn't know he did, which was back in the 30s. These are large papers of scores. Intricate stuff. And so we had a mutual thing. And it was an easy, approachable person to get in touch with, and those are some of my experiences. And here's one thing I just want to get to too before I get this last thing. Let me get on because I have to move on. I just went over how I dealt with the pandemic. The pandemic didn't affect me too much because I was writing all the time and I had to film the score. If I had any advice, one of the questions is, do I have any advice for younger musicians? I don't give advice. That's a presumption. This is just my weird here to create. It's a presumption that I know. I'm still a perpetual learner. I don't give advice, but I can give you experiences that I can share with you that worked or did not work with me. Maybe they resonate with you. As musicians, this is one thing. During the pandemic, I hope musicians, venues, and festival people have learned the value of the entertainment that is coming into your establishments, that are bringing the clientele into your establishments to buy your food, to absorb your ambience, to buy your drinks, and to absorb your whole place. We, as musicians, have to. I would like to see musicians do a cross-promotional thing. This is one thing I have a problem with music. Not problem. This is one thing I see musicians not doing. Like I said, again, we put these CDs out and we build it, and we don't put money in behind marketing. Marketing seems to be an afterthought, which it should not be. Marketing should be right. Marketing, I even spend more on marketing than actually recording, to tell the truth. I'm trying to find my ROI on that, which is my return on investment. But as musicians, cross-promotional, we should do some cross-promotional things, which doesn't cost much. All you have to do, I put out a CD, or if you put out a CD and you're on it and you're one of the people on it, let me give you something to put on your social media platform and tell somebody, hey, you were proud to be on this thing. That's a free thing. All you got to do is cut, paste, and put it on your platform. That's cross promotion. I would do the same. You could do the same. And if we did that, like I had 29 people, musicians on this latest CD, Jawanza Kobie, jazz composer. And I proposed it to all the musicians. I only got 4 responses. It's a free thing. And I said, it's not, I'm not a dig, but it's just musicians. It doesn't hurt to help another musician, to promote another musician's things, man. I mean, it's like, I use the old example of lighting a candle. Just because you take one candle, you lit it, and you go light a menorah or Hanukkah or not Hanukkah, it was Kwanzaa menorah, Kwanzaa candelabra. It doesn't diminish, it doesn't take away from the other candles. It doesn't take away from that original candle. That candle still shines. So, I mean, you can help someone else. You can light another person's candle, another person's project, and it doesn't diminish from your project. It just helps. It's just another thing that people can go to and listen to. Because, I mean, you like one piano player doesn't mean you're not going to. I like Herbie Hancock. Doesn't diminish my fact I like Chick Corea, Oscar Peterson, Art Tatum, Teddy Wilson. I mean, Bud Powell. It doesn't diminish any of those things. I still love them all. I love a pianist player. But as musicians, I would like us to be cross promotional. And one of the things getting back to one of the things I'm working on, I like to get into festivals. I hope festival people listen to this. I'd like to tell little stories. I was watching Willard Jenkins. I know he's out of DC, and he did a little thing in it. He did a little thing that at least he posted something. I remember him saying that, I hope I'm not putting words up, I'm not messing this up, but he said he likes musicians to tell a little story, anecdotes on your shows, not just go from tune to tune. I do stuff like that. So I'm trying not to talk too much, which is not really a problem with me. But I like telling those stories. Like, what was the inspiration behind this tune? I won't do it for every tune. And in fact, I was even going to go to comedy school and try to tell jokes in between. There's this guy named Nick Lorleone. Nick? He's a guitar. He's a smooth jazz guitarist. And I thought he was so funny. But I want to commune with the audience. And I hope vendors and I hope festival people realize the people that you're bringing into are bringing that understand that the talent is bringing people into your establishments. Treat them with the respect and the understanding that the talent deserves. I'm not going to get into specifics, but treat them with the respect. Because I equate things like, if you go into an establishment, this establishment said we play music. Would you go in there just to go buy the food? If that's the place that you would not necessarily go to buy the food, or food's a byproduct, while I'm here in this great band, let me buy some food. But the food's just the byproduct, or the food is the actual glue. I mean, there's some places here I don't want to mention, but I would go to just for the food. And then you're coming in, there's a great jazz band too, or a band or something like that. Man, you can't get any better than that. So let's see, my time is about up. Well, I have more time. But I just want to get into musicians. We're all in this together. It doesn't cost anything to help another musician's product or promotion. It's just a matter of cutting, pasting like I cut and pasted. You didn't have to even come up with it. Said I had a little caption. I sent it to them. Said cut and paste. Post this on your social media. Post this on your social media for me. And in turn, send me your links, and I'll put it on my website next to your name, where I have on your website as one that contributes to my CD, and just promote. It doesn't help. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't diminish anything. It takes nothing away from you. So that's my little speech. I don't give advice. I just give experience. And that's why I am. So I was an electrician I worked for the mass transit for 33 years in Philadelphia. I was manager for most of those years. And I retired 7 years ago, and since then I've been doing this full tilt. I was doing music all before. I've been doing music all before. I was even on record labels while I was at mass transits. But That's where I am. So my time is up. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.